1. Declare war on your enemies. Life is endless battle and conflict, and you cannot fight effectively unless you can identify your enemies. People are subtle and evasive, disguising their intentions, pretending to be on your side. You need clarity. Learn to smoke out your enemies, to spot them by the signs and patterns that reveal hostility. Then, once you have them in your sights, inwardly declare war. As the opposite poles of a magnet create motion, your enemies, your opposites, can fill you with purpose and direction. They are the people who stand in your way, who represent what you loathe, people to react against. They are a source of energy. Do not be naive. With some enemies, there can be no compromise, no middle ground. 2. Do not fight the last war. What most often weighs you down and brings you misery is the past, in the form of unnecessary attachments, repetitions of tired formulas, and the memory of old victories and defeats. You must consciously wage war against the past and force yourself to react to the present moment. Be ruthless on yourself. Do not repeat the same tired methods. Sometimes, you must force yourself to strike out in new directions, even if they involve risk. What you may lose in comfort and security, you will gain in surprise, making it harder for your enemies to predict your next move. Wage guerrilla war on your mind, allowing no static lines of defense, no exposed citadels. Make everything fluid and mobile. 3. Amidst the turmoil of events, do not lose your presence of mind. In the heat of battle, the mind tends to lose its balance. Too many things confront you at the same time, unexpected setbacks, doubts, and criticisms from your own allies. There's a danger of responding emotionally with fear, depression, or frustration. It is vital to keep your presence of mind, maintaining your mental powers regardless of the circumstances. You must actively resist the emotional pull of the moment, staying decisive, confident, and aggressive no matter what hits you. Make the mind tougher by exposing it to adversity. Learn to detach yourself from the chaos of the battlefield. Let others lose their heads. Your presence of mind will steer you clear of their influence and keep you on course. 4. Create a sense of urgency and desperation. You are your own worst enemy. You waste precious time dreaming of the future instead of engaging in the present. Since nothing seems urgent to you, you are only half involved in what you do. The only way to change is through action and outside pressure. Put yourself in situations where you have too much at stake to waste time or resources. If you cannot afford to lose, you won't. Cut your ties to the past. Enter unknown territory where you must depend on your wits and energy to see you through. Place yourself on death ground, where your back is against the wall, and you have to fight like hell to get out alive. 5. Avoid the snares of groupthink. The problem in leading any group is that people inevitably have their own agendas. If you are too authoritarian, they will resent you and rebel in silent ways. If you are too easygoing, they will revert to their natural selfishness, and you will lose control. You have to create a chain of command in which people do not feel constrained by your influence yet follow your lead. Put the right people in place, people who will enact the spirit of your ideas without being automatons. Make your commands clear and inspiring, focusing attention on the team, not the leader. Create a sense of participation, but do not fall into groupthink, the irrationality of collective decision-making. Make yourself look like a paragon of fairness, but never relinquish unity of command. 6. Segment your forces. The critical elements in war are speed and adaptability, the ability to move and make decisions faster than the enemy. However, speed and adaptability are harder to achieve today. We have more information than ever before at our fingertips, making interpretation and decision-making more difficult. We have more people to manage, those people are more widely spread, and we face more uncertainty. Learn from Napoleon, warfare's greatest master. Speed and adaptability come from flexible organization. Break your forces into independent groups that can operate and make decisions on their own. Make your forces elusive and unstoppable by inspiring them with the spirit of the campaign, giving them a mission to accomplish, and then letting them run. 7. Transform your war into a crusade. The secret to motivating people and maintaining their morale is to get them to think less about themselves and more about the group. Involve them in a cause, a crusade against a hated enemy. Make them see their survival as tied to the success of the army as a whole. In a group where people have truly bonded, moods and emotions are so contagious that it becomes easy to infect your troops with enthusiasm. Lead from the front. Let your soldiers see you in the trenches, making sacrifices for the cause. That will fill them with the desire to emulate and please you. Make both rewards and punishments rare but meaningful. Remember, a motivated army can work wonders, making up for any lack of material resources. 8. Pick your battles carefully. We all have limitations. Our energies and skills will take us only so far. Danger comes from trying to surpass our limits, seduced by some glittering prize into overextending ourselves. We end up exhausted and vulnerable. You must know your limits and pick your battles carefully. Consider the hidden costs of a war, time lost, political goodwill squandered, and an embittered enemy bent on revenge. Sometimes it is better to wait, to undermine your enemies covertly rather than hitting them head-on. If battle cannot be avoided, get them to fight on your terms. Aim at their weaknesses. Make the war expensive for them and cheap for you. By fighting with perfect economy, you can outlast even the most powerful foe. 9. Turn the tables. Moving first, initiating the attack, will often put you at a disadvantage. You are exposing your strategy and limiting your options. Instead, discover the power of holding back and letting the other side move first, giving you the flexibility to counterattack from any angle. If your opponents are aggressive, bait them into a rash attack that will leave them in a weak position. Learn to use their impatience, their eagerness to get at you, as a way to throw them off balance and bring them down. In difficult moments, do not despair or retreat. Any situation can be turned around if you learn how to hold back, waiting for the right moment to launch an unexpected counterattack. Weakness can become strength. 10. Create a threatening presence. The best way to fight off aggressors is to keep them from attacking you in the first place. To accomplish this, you must create the impression of being more powerful than you are. Build up a reputation that you're a little crazy. Fighting you is not worth it, as you take your enemies with you when you lose. Create this reputation and make it credible with a few impressively violent acts. Uncertainty is sometimes better than overt threat. If your opponents are never sure what messing with you will cost, they will not want to find out. Play on people's natural fears and anxieties to make them think twice. 11. Trade space for time. Retreat in the face of a strong enemy is a sign not of weakness but of strength. By resisting the temptation to respond to an aggressor, you buy yourself valuable time to recover, to think, to gain perspective. Let your enemies advance. Time is more important than space. By refusing to fight, you infuriate them and feed their arrogance. They will soon overextend themselves and start making mistakes. Time will reveal them as rash, and you as wise. Sometimes, you can accomplish the most by doing nothing. 12. Lose battles, but win the war. Everyone around you is a strategist, angling for power, all trying to promote their own interests, often at your expense. Your daily battles with them make you lose sight of the only thing that really matters: victory in the end, the achievement of greater goals, lasting power. Grand strategy is the art of looking beyond the battle and calculating ahead. It requires that you focus on your ultimate goal and plot to reach it. In grand strategy, you consider the political ramifications and long-term consequences of what you do. Instead of reacting emotionally to people, you take control and make your actions more dimensional, subtle, and effective. Let others get caught up in the twists and turns of a battle, relishing their little victories. Grand strategy will bring you the ultimate reward, the last laugh. 13. Know your enemy. The target of your strategy should be less the army you face than the mind of the man or woman who runs it. If you understand how that mind works, you have the key to deceiving and controlling it. Train yourself to read people, picking up the signals they unconsciously send about their innermost thoughts and intentions. A friendly front will let you watch them closely and mine them for information. Beware of projecting your own emotions and mental habits onto them. Try to think as they think. By finding your opponent's psychological weaknesses, you can work to unhinge their minds. 14. Overwhelm resistance with speed and suddenness. In a world where many people are indecisive and overly cautious, the use of speed will bring you untold power. Striking first, before your opponents have time to think or prepare, will make them emotional, unbalanced, and prone to error. When you follow with another swift and sudden maneuver, you will induce further panic and confusion. This strategy works best with a setup, a lull. Your unexpected action catches your enemy off guard. When you strike, hit with unrelenting force. Acting with speed and decisiveness will garner you respect, awe, and irresistible momentum. 15. Control the dynamic. People are constantly struggling to control you, getting you to act in their interests, keeping the dynamic on their terms. The only way to get the upper hand is to make your play for control more intelligent and insidious. Instead of trying to dominate the other side's every move, work to define the nature of the relationship itself. Shift the conflict to terrain of your choice, altering the pace and stakes to suit you. Maneuver to control your opponent's mind, pushing their emotional buttons and compelling them to make mistakes. If necessary, let them feel they are in control to get them to lower their guard. If you control the overall direction and framing of the battle, anything they do will play into your hands. 16. Hit them where it hurts. Everyone has a source of power on which they depend. When you look at your rivals, search below the surface for that source, the center of gravity that holds the entire structure together. That center can be their wealth, their popularity, a key position, or a winning strategy. Hitting them there will inflict disproportionate pain. Find what the other side most cherishes and protects. That is where you must strike. 17. Defeat them in detail. When you look at your enemies, do not be intimidated by their appearance. Instead, look at the parts that make up the whole. By separating the parts, sowing dissension and division from within, you can weaken and bring down even the most formidable foe. In setting up your attack, work on their minds to create internal conflict. Look for the joints and links, the things that connect the people in a group or one group to another. Division is weakness, and the joints are the weakest part of any structure. When you are facing troubles or enemies, turn a large problem into small, eminently defeat-able parts. 18. Expose and attack your opponent's soft flank. When you attack people directly, you stiffen their resistance, making your attacks much harder. There is a better way. Distract your opponent's attention to the front, then attack them from the side, where they least expect it. By hitting them where they are soft, tender, and unprotected, you create a shock, a moment of weakness for you to exploit. Bait people into going out on a limb, exposing their weakness, then rake them with fire from the side. The only way to get stubborn opponents to move is to approach them indirectly. 19. Envelop the enemy. People will use any kind of gap in your defenses to attack you or seek revenge, so offer no gaps. The secret is to envelop your opponents, create relentless pressure on them from all sides, dominate their attention, and close off their access to the outside world. Make your attacks unpredictable to create a vaporous feeling of vulnerability. Finally, as you sense their weakening resolve, crush their willpower by tightening the noose. The best encirclements are psychological. You have surrounded their minds. 20. Maneuver them into weakness. No matter how strong you are, fighting endless battles with people is exhausting, costly, and unimaginative. This is why strategists generally prefer the art of maneuver. Before the battle even begins, they find ways to put their opponents in positions of such weakness that victory is easy and quick. Bait enemies into taking positions that may seem alluring but are actually traps and blind alleys. If their position is strong, get them to abandon it by leading them on a wild goose chase. Create dilemmas, devise maneuvers that give them a choice of ways to respond, all of them bad. Channel chaos and disorder in their direction. Confused, frustrated, and angry opponents are like ripe fruit on the bough. The slightest breeze will make them fall. 21. Negotiate while advancing. People will always try to take from you in negotiations what they couldn't get through battle or confrontation. They may use appeals to fairness or morality to gain ground, but don't be deceived. Negotiation is about power and positioning. To ensure you aren't chipped away yet, keep advancing before and during the talks. Apply relentless pressure, compelling the other side to settle on your terms. The more ground you take, the more you can afford to give back in meaningless concessions. Develop a reputation for toughness so that opponents are off balance before negotiations even begin. 22. Know how to end things. You are judged not only by your victories, but by how well you end things. A messy or incomplete conclusion can damage your reputation and haunt you for years. Knowing when to stop is essential. Don't exhaust yourself or create bitter enemies that could embroil you in future conflicts. End things with energy, flair, and on the right note. It's not just about winning, but how you win. Your victory should set you up for future success. The height of strategic wisdom is to avoid conflicts that have no realistic exits. 23. Weave a seamless blend of fact and fiction. No creature can survive without the ability to perceive its surroundings. To weaken your enemies, make it hard for them to understand what's happening, including your own actions. People's perceptions are filtered by emotions and desires. Feed their expectations, creating a reality that matches their hopes, and they will deceive themselves. The best deceptions blend fact and fiction, making it impossible to separate the two. If you control people's perceptions of reality, you control them. 24. Take the line of least expectation. People expect behavior to follow known patterns. Your task as a strategist is to upset those expectations and create chaos. When you defy their predictions, you throw them off balance. First, do something conventional to fix their image of you, then hit them with something extraordinary and unexpected. The terror is greater when it's sudden. Avoid repeating unorthodox strategies that worked in the past, as they become conventional once used. Sometimes, the most surprising move is the ordinary one, executed at an unexpected time. 25. Occupy the moral high ground. In the political realm, the causes you fight for must appear more just than your enemies. Think of this as moral terrain you are battling over. By questioning your enemy's motives and painting them as evil, you narrow their support and limit their room to maneuver. Target the weak spots in their public image, exposing hypocrisies. Never assume the righteousness of your cause is self-evident. Publicize and promote it. When attacked on moral grounds, don't whine or get angry. Fight fire with fire, positioning yourself as the underdog or martyr. Use guilt as a moral weapon. 26. Deny them targets. Most people find silence, isolation, and non-engagement unbearable, and you can exploit this weakness. Deny your enemies a target by being elusive, dangerous, but invisible. This is the essence of guerrilla warfare. Avoid direct confrontation and instead deliver damaging side attacks and minor yet constant disruptions. The frustration caused by chasing you into the void will make your opponents grow irrational and weary. Incorporate this approach into a grand political cause, turning your guerrilla tactics into a larger, unstoppable movement or revolution. 27. Seem to work for the interests of others while furthering your own. The most effective way to advance your own cause with minimal effort is to form strategic alliances. Use others to fill in your deficiencies, do your dirty work, and even fight your battles. To achieve this, create relationships where others feel indebted to you, offering friendship and assistance in times of need. At the same time, sow discord in your rivals' alliances, isolating them while ensuring your coalitions are strong. Maintain flexibility and avoid getting entangled in negative situations so you can drop allies when they no longer serve your purpose. 28. Give your rivals enough rope to hang themselves. The greatest dangers often come from within, from colleagues who secretly work against you. To neutralize them, instill doubt and insecurity in their minds. Subtly provoke them with challenges that cause them to overreact, leading them to make public mistakes or show their true, destructive nature. By encouraging their self-destructive tendencies, you remain clean while they alienate themselves and damage their own standing. 29. Take small bites. Ambition that is too obvious stirs envy and suspicion. To avoid this, make your gains in small, inconspicuous steps. Take small bites rather than grand power grabs. By staying under the radar, you can accumulate influence and power before anyone realizes it. If questioned, you can always justify your actions as defensive. By the time anyone notices your progress, it will be too late. Your quiet empire will already be established. 30. Penetrate their minds. Communication is a battlefield where your goal is to infiltrate and occupy the minds of others. Subtlety is key. Present your ideas indirectly, allowing others to think they've come to your conclusions themselves. To penetrate resistant minds, disguise your radical ideas in familiar forms. For those who are particularly dull or resistant, shock them with powerful and fresh language. Avoid being preachy, passive, or overly personal. Your words should ignite action and change in others, not simply be received passively. 31. Destroy from within. The most insidious way to defeat an enemy is to infiltrate and undermine them from the inside. When you work from within, your adversary cannot see or react to the threat. As a member of their ranks, you can identify their weaknesses and create internal dissent. Instead of direct confrontation, quietly allying with your enemy, gaining trust, and eventually dismantling their organization from within. No structure can last when it is being eaten away from the core. Rot them from within and wait for the perfect moment to strike or take over. 32. dominate while seeming to submit. Domination does not always require open force. Hidden aggression, masked behind a facade of compliance, is a powerful tactic. By appearing submissive or agreeable, you can quietly control the situation. Present yourself as non-threatening, even vulnerable, and others will underestimate you, while the power subtly shifts in your favor. If challenged, deny your intentions and shift any guilt onto those accusing you. To truly master this strategy, you must be able to conceal your true intentions well enough that even if others suspect, they cannot prove it. You can use this to influence those around you without provoking confrontation. 33. Sow uncertainty and panic through acts of terror. Terror paralyzes and undermines an opponent's willpower and ability to respond rationally. By committing sporadic acts of disruption and violence, you can create widespread fear and chaos, forcing your opponents into desperate overreactions. The aim of terror is not victory on the battlefield, but control over the minds of the public and the enemy through unpredictability. Disperse your actions to seem ubiquitous, amplifying your power by appearing everywhere at once. The victims of terror must remain calm and rational if they are to mount an effective response, as panic only strengthens the terror campaign's hold.